Chapter 94 of Married Thrice to Salted Fish. Shirang had a secret meeting in the mansion with the envoy from the Shishya. The Shi mansion was naturally heavily guarded, but they were on guard against outsiders, not the emperor, let alone his younger brother, whom he had protected and doted on all his life. He knew Shaojie heard it all. Having been together for many years, the other party was like another of himself. He was very familiar with every expression and every movement of Shaojie's. However, he has never seen Shaojie show such an expression when he was with him. Panicked, stunned, trembling, disappointed, and frightened. Shirang felt a sharp pain in his heart, but his voice was soft. "Your Majesty." Shaojie froze in place, as if he were looking at a cruel and vicious stranger. Shirang called again, "Ajie." It was like Shaojie was waking up from a dream. The rims of his eyes instantly reddened. "Arang, you betrayed the..." Before he could utter the word country, Shirang interrupted Shaojie. "Ajie, you misunderstood me." "I heard it all. I heard it all." Shaojie's tears welled up in his eyes. "That man wants to make a deal with you. He wants you to kill General Gu, and you agreed." Shirang took 2 steps forward. He wanted to hug Shaojie into his arms, comfort him like he was a child. Shaojie has a soft personality. He grew without the care of his biological mother or imperial mother. He had not a shred of the late emperor's favor, and he has suffered a lot of grievances in the Sinister Palace since he was a child. It is the elder brother's duty to make the younger brother happy. How many times Shaojie cried was how many times he comforted him. But this time, Shaojie didn't throw himself into arms like he usually did. Rather, he retreated like a frightened kitten. Don't come closer." Shirang stopped in his steps and said, "Ajie, I told you that lynching you and Gu Fuzhao will not tolerate me being by your side to assist you. Once Gu Fuzhao returns to the capital, lynching you will attack me. Do you understand?" Shaojie choked. He said, "But you can't collude with the enemy and betray the country. I'm a bit stupid, but I'm also a descendant of the Shao family. General Gu is fighting for Dayu. You can't harm him at this time. I'm going to tell the Empress Dowager and Imperial Physician Lin." Shirang scolded, "Stop." Shirang had never been so fierce towards him before. He felt wronged and angry at the same time. He began to cry, appearing like pear blossoms bathed in rain, delicate and charming. Shirang said rationally, "Shishya's envoy came to find me. They want to use Gu Fuzhao's life to end the war between our 2 countries. What would happen if I disagreed? Should I have let the envoy go back and tell the Shishya army to give up on this notion? Or should I have killed him outright? No matter what I do, it would have only made Shishya strengthen their guard against the Dayu." Shaojie couldn't wrap his mind around it, but he understood one thing. Shirang hadn't actually agreed with the Shishya. "What do you mean?" Shirang's face cleared somewhat and he said, "Ajie, think about it carefully. Now that I have agreed to Shishya's peace negotiation, won't they feel like they have already won? Do you think they will take the battle at Yonglian seriously?" "Then you only pretended to agree. You lied to them?" Seeing Shaojie looking at him with almost the same eyes as usual, Shirang heaved a sigh of relief. He said with a smile, "Do you still remember the story of Huang Gai's false surrender that I told you when we were young? He can feign surrender, and we can also feign peace. Don't worry, I won't allow myself, let alone you, be charged with treason. So it's like this. Xiaojie was coaxed by Qirong in just a few words. He wiped his tears with the back of his hand and said, "You should have said so earlier. I misunderstood you." Qirong grabbed Xiaojie's hand and wiped his tears with his sleeve. "It's good that we have cleared up this misunderstanding. All right, just don't stand there. Come in." The two entered the study, and Qirong ordered someone to fetch water to wash the emperor's face. Qirong asked Xiaojie why he suddenly left the palace, and Xiaojie told him about his conversation with Lin Qingyu. "Arang, do you have to fight with Imperial Physician Lin and the others?" Xiaojie asked naively. "I don't want to harm them. I think it's good how things are now. It will be fine if things continue like this." Qirong patted Xiaojie's head and said, "Let's wait for Gu Fuzhao to defeat Shixia." "Okay." Xiaojie saw the wet handwriting on the table and asked curiously, "What is this?" Qirong didn't hide it from him. Gu Fuzhao has been fighting a war of attrition with the Shixia in the northwest for more than a month. Both sides are nearing their limits. So Shixia wants to know the Dayu supply route. Xiaojie asked, "Are they going to rob us of our provisions?" Qirong nodded. "That should be their plan." "Oh." Xiaojie suddenly became excited. "Then can we tell them the wrong route and then lay an ambush there in advance, killing them by surprise?" Qirong was a little surprised, and he said with a smile, "Ajie has become smarter." Xiaojie laughed and said, "You're the only one in this world who would praise me for being smart. We have been together for so long, I have probably picked up a thing or two from you." Qirong opened the map showing the way from Gu province to Yongliang. "Ajie, where is the best place to plant an ambush, you think?" Xiaojie gave it a serious thought. He pointed at a certain road and said, "Here, it's the farthest from the real road the provisions will take, and it's a narrow path between the canyons. Once the enemy army enters, they won't be able to retreat." Qirong hesitated for a moment and then said with a smile, "Then we will do as Ajie says." Xiaojie finally made a contribution for the Dayu, and he was very happy. "By the way, I think we should tell the Empress Dowager and Imperial Physician Lin about this. They are also very concerned about the situation in the northwest." "No need." Qirong stopped smiling. "They don't need to know." Xiaojie hesitated, but Qirong took on a serious expression. "Ajie, you have to remember that Lin Qingyu wants my life. Letting him know too much isn't a good thing. Anything might be his blade to take my life." Xiaojie was dazed hearing it. Although Qirong kept saying that Lin Qingyu was going to harm them, he always felt that Lin Qingyu would not. Lin Qingyu was as good looking as an immortal. Can his heart really be so vicious? Ugh, I hate Qirong. He is like manipulating Xiaojie left and right. This is so much, this is too much to even bear. I do feel pity for Xiaojie, for sure. He is naive. He did not want anything. He did not want power or glory. He just wanted to live a peaceful life. He was kind of belittled, sure, but he was still a prince. He lived better than most of the people in the Dayu. So he was okay. He could chill, he could laze around, he could always be with his brother. He didn't have to work hard or do anything. And he was fine. But Qirong has so much greed. He has greed to even put his own country at threat, probably killing a lot of people, a lot of soldiers. I still think the initial Northwest thing was because of Shirang. I think Shirang kind of like talked to those people, the Shishya commander, way before. I just don't know how he got in contact with the enemy general though. But one thing for sure, he's a good villain. The villain you want to hate so much, can't wait for him to die. That's Shirang. Although Xiaojie had finally reconciled with Shirang, he really had been given a fright during it. Shirang was afraid that he would have lingering fears, and so he specially found a famous opera troupe in the capital to perform at the palace. Xiaojie loved to watch operas, and when he was in the mood, he could sit in front of the stage for the entire day. Within the imperial palace, the stage was constructed in the Peony Garden. The Peony Garden was not far from Xi'an Palace, and the stage was placed there originally to make it convenient for the Empress Dowager to listen to various performances. But now it has become a place that disturbed the Empress Dowager's peace. The Empress Dowager was discussing with Lin Qingyu about taxation in Jingnan when the melodious singing was heard drifting in from afar. The Empress Dowager was displeased and asked, "Who's listening to the opera in the Peony Garden?" Lin Qingyu said, "There is no one in the Emperor's harem and all the concubines live in Jinyang Garden. Who else could it be?" The Empress Dowager furrowed her brows and said slowly, "The Emperor is a leisurely man." "That is a good thing," Lin Qingyu said calmly. "For someone like the Emperor, at least by doing nothing, he causes no trouble to others." Having said that, the Northwest is still at war after all. Even if the Emperor doesn't care about governing, he should at least make a show of it as not to give the officials something to criticize. After thinking about it, the Empress Dowager still decided to have someone call in Xiaojie. Xiaojie didn't keep the Empress Dowager waiting, and he rushed over almost immediately. After being scolded by the Empress Dowager, Xiaojie finally realized that what he had done. Not paying any mind that Lin Qingyu was there, he said, "Zhen now knows that Zhen was wrong. Zhen did not give it enough thought. I'm sorry, Imperial Mother. I will never listen to operas again." The Emperor admitted his mistake so sincerely that the Empress Dowager didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It's not that Your Majesty cannot listen to opera, simply that there is a time and place for everything. Once a Dayu has regained in the chaos in the Northwest, Ajia too would love to watch the opera." Xiaojie nodded. "I understand. Thank you for Imperial Mother's teaching. When peace has returned, I will invite Imperial Mother to listen to the opera with Sixth Brother." Xiaojie looked younger than his actual age, and the way he nodded made him look very lovable. Although the Empress Dowager was negligent towards this bastard son in the past, she held no malicious intention, and scolding him this much was already enough. It so happened that it was for the evening meal, and so the Empress Dowager invited Xiaojie to stay and eat. "Qingyu, you too," Lin Qingyu said. This humble official already partook the evening meal at Xi'an Palace yesterday. The Empress Dowager laughed and said, "Lear always eats more when you're around." Throughout the meal, Xiaojie kept looking as though he had something to say. The Empress Dowager asked him if he had anything to say, and he decisively said no. After dinner, Xiaojie went to Xinjiang Hall. The Empress Dowager couldn't help but say, "It seems that the Emperor isn't beyond hope. If he weren't the monarch of a country, he could be regarded as a child with a pure heart. Lin Qingyi let out an mm. He will never be a wise ruler, but if the emperor can get away from Shi Rong with a little bit of guidance, at least he won't be manipulated by others. Lin Qingyu chuckled lightly. Unfortunately, he will never be able to leave. You might be a little too overconfident about that, said the Empress Dowager. Even brothers with the same mother and father will turn against each other for their own selfish interests, let alone them. I have been in the palace for so many years and I have seen everything. The emperor grew to rely on Shi Rong so much because he was never doted on. If we find him a dignified, elegant, compassionate and understanding consort, someone he can entrust his feelings to, maybe he won't value Shi Rong so much. The more the Empress Dowager thought about it, the more she felt that this was a good solution. The emperor is already of age, and we are now past the filial piety period for the late emperor. It would be a good time to find a concubine for him. The Empress Dowager thought that Lin Qingyu would agree with her. Unexpectedly, Lin Qingyu gave no response. The Empress Dowager couldn't help asking, Qingyu, what do you think? Lin Qingyu said, The Empress Dowager must forgive me, but I have no interest in using marriage to imprison others. The Empress Dowager was slightly taken aback, and her expression became a little colder. Forget it, she said, losing interest. We will just have to watch and see for now. It was night, and Shi Rong personally served Shao Jie to bed. Before going to bed, they talked, catching up on what had happened during the day, a habit they have had since they were children. Shi Rong asked Shao Jie about the opera he watched today. Shao Jie had on a disappointed expression as he said, I'm not going to watch opera in the palace anymore. Shi Rong asked, Why? Shao Jie told Shi Rong what had happened today. Imperial Mother is right. The soldiers of the Northwest are fighting so desperately. It's bad enough that I can't even help. How can I be enjoying this kind of luxury in the palace? Shi Rong cared not a whit about this. You ate with the Empress Dowager and Lin Qingyu? Sixth brother was there too. Shao Jie said plainly whatever was on his mind. Sixth brother is still the same. He doesn't respond to anything. He only ever smiles at Imperial Physician Lin. Shi Rong interrupted him. Did you mention the transport ambush to them? Shao Jie was momentarily stunned. His eyes revealed a little guilt. I didn't. There was no change in Shao Jie's face that could ever escape Shi Rong's eyes. Do you still want to tell them? In the end, I said nothing. That's what you want, isn't it? Shao Jie covered his head with the quilt and said in a muffled voice, I'm going to sleep. You should go. Shi Rong's eyes were half-lidded. This servant will now withdraw. As soon as Shi Rong called himself this servant, Shao Jie knew he was angry. But he really didn't know what to do. Why did Shi Rong and Lin Qingyu have to insist on fighting to the death? Before he ascended to the throne, these two obviously got along fine. Shao Jie fell asleep full of worries. After an unknown amount of time, he was awakened by the sound of, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. When he opened his eyes, he saw the eunuch who served him, Shao Zhuanxi. There was the sound of a rushing footsteps outside. All feeling of drowsiness suddenly left Shao Jie, and he asked, What happened? Panicking, Shao Zhuanxi said, Your Majesty, there is an assassin in the palace. Eunuch Shi, he... Shao Jie grabbed Shao Zhuanxi's shoulder. What happened to him? Eunuch Shi was seriously injured. He lost a lot of blood. He's resting now in the side hall. Oh, this guy. The ploys he would go through to manipulate this innocent kid. Gosh. Shirang, there is a special place for you in hell. Xiaojie rolled and scrambled out of the bed, running to the side hall with bare feet. The Imperial Guards have already been dispatched and the palace was completely surrounded. No one was getting in or out. Shirang had already been carried to the bed. There was an eye-piercing knife wound on the left side of his abdomen. Blood kept gushing from the wound. Because of the blood loss, Shirang's face looked pale. He was in a miserable state, but his mind remained sharp and clear. When Xiaojie saw him, he cried, "Where is the Imperial Physician? Call the Imperial Physician quickly." Xiao Zhuanxi said, "I have already sent someone to fetch him. The Imperial Physician should be on the way." Shirang grabbed Xiaojie's hand, breathing weakly. "Your Majesty, this servant is fine. Don't worry." "How come?" Xiaojie hugged Shirang on the verge of collapse. "How could there be an assassin in the palace? Why would someone want to kill you?" Shirang showed a strange smile. Who aside from them would have assassins bold enough to enter the palace? Xiaojie was out of breath from crying. "Who?" Shirang groaned in pain. Xiao Zhuanxi hurriedly said, "Eunuch Shi says it should be someone from the Tianjie camp." Xiaojie was dazed, but his tear kept rolling. "Why?" Xiao Zhuanxi said, "As I remember, the token of the Tianjie camp is in the hands of Imperial Physician Lin." "Imperial Physician Lin?" Shirang closed his eyes. There was a sudden strength in his hands. "So, do you still want to get close to Lin Qingyu and tell him everything?" Xiaojie cried and shook his head. I won't tell the Empress Dowager when Lin Qingyu anymore. I won't say anything. I just want you to be well. Arang, don't die. I won't let you die." Shirang's injury looked scary, but he didn't hurt his vitals, and he was in no mortal danger. However, due to excessive blood loss, his vitality was depleted, and so he had to rest for a while. Ugh, I'm so freaking frustrated. When will Shirang die, huh? There was an assassin in the Emperor's palace. This was top priority. Wu Zhan didn't care to be negligent in the slightest, and he led the Imperial Guards to search the palace the entire night. However, no clues could be found. When Lin Qingyu heard about this, he questioned Wu Zhan and the Imperial Physician who had treated Shirang that night. He then understood everything. "You needn't bother about this matter anymore," Lin Qingyu said. "The assassin cannot be caught." Wu Zhan said, Why? You think an assassin who has the ability to come and go without a trace in the palace cannot even kill a mere eunuch? The only one this kind of hole-ridden trick can deceive is the Emperor, who's now lost his head over his concern." Wu Zhan still didn't quite understand. "Imperial Physician Lin means," Lin Qingyu said, "Shirang just wanted to seize the Emperor's heart. He wanted the Emperor to stand firmly by his side." Wu Zhan hissed. "Turns out this was nothing but a self-injury trick. He's awfully determined, even injuring himself with his own hands." Lin Qingyu smiled suddenly. Indeed. Shirang's actions reminded him of Gu Fuzhao. Back then, in order to return to the capital from the northwest, in order to return to him, Gu Fuzhao didn't hesitate to poison himself. On this point, Gu Fuzhou too was a determined man. That's why this time he would definitely use all his might to come back.